everything.
Okay, my name is Ella Bernhardt-Brooks, and I'm a farmer's daughter. Growing up, my father was a farm hand, and what that means is that his salary was 6,000 a year. He had the use of one milk cow, and he had a small plot of land that he could use that the property owner, loaned to him, and we received one hog per year and one half of a beef per year when it was butchered. And as a farmer's daughter, you had many obligations. I had to help my mother in the house. I had to help my father feed the farm animals that belonged to us, because I was not allowed to help on tractors or anything like that, because I was a farm hand's daughter. And so one of the things that stands out as helping my mother, we produced our own food, a lot of it. We didn't go to the store because the store was like an hour away. So we had to have a lot of stuff on hand. We made our own ketchup, we made our own cheese, cottage cheese. We made our own bread. We churned our own butter. And at night, when mom had collected enough cream and stuff, we would churn, and it was a glass globe with a handle and paddles on the inside. And so she would turn until she got tired. Then she would pass it over to Tanya, who was the oldest. Tanya would churn for a while, and then on down through all of us kids. So while we were all in the living room watching some TV, we would help mom churn the butter. And so that was one of the things we did. We made our own bread. And growing up, mom did not have this recipe written down. It was passed from grandmother to mother to daughter. And so when I was a teenager, I said, Mom, I would like you to write this down, or I'll write it down and you tell me. And she would do a pinch of this, a handful of that. So she would put stuff in her hand, then she would put it into a measuring cup, and then I would write down how much. So I saved a recipe that had been going down through the years. It's very old, and because I had my mom do this, it's written down now so that my siblings have this recipe, and it's one of the best bread recipes. Nothing matches it. Also, there was a brownie recipe that has been passed down from mother to daughter, and it's one of the best that people are just amazed at the taste of it, but it had to be written down. So that was one of the things, and this is going to school full time, but you had your obligations at home too. We had rabbits, we had hogs, geese, ducks. All these animals had to be fed. Once you got home from school, you had to go out and feed the animals, or get up early in the morning and feed them. We had cats, and cats, to a lot of people, you don't know why they're important for a farm, but we had ranging from 10 to 20 cats. But we never had mice, rats, or snakes around our property because they were very beneficial for the farm. They took care of these pests that you don't want around. So we had a lot of cats, and we had a couple dogs. We had a border collie, who was a great herder. But with Dad, I would go out hunting with him, and he had ideas for what women should and should not do. And I know in today's society that is wrong, but growing up, that was Dad. He did not mind me going hunting with him, but I had to stay behind him. I was not allowed a gun, and so he did the killing and the carrying, but he liked the company. And that goes for fishing. I would go fishing with my father, but it was his job, and I could catch him, but he would gut them and clean them and bring them in, and it was Mom's duty to cook them. My father was even, he knew how to cook. He did not mind stepping into the house and doing his share of the cooking if mom was not feeling well. So he was not what you call a chauvinist. He just had ideas what some things women should not be doing, and that was killing animals and cleaning them. And I never experienced that because of that. Once a year, as a farmhand, my father was participating in a hog killing. And what it is, all the neighbors in the neighborhood, in the area, would get together with their hogs and they would do a day of killing. And I know today that sounds horrible, but it's a survival thing. And they would hang them up in the barn to let them drain, and then we would bring them home, and I would help my dad and mom pack the animals, cut them up, render the lard, because we didn't use, we didn't know anything about these fancy oils like olive oil. All of our foods were fried in hog fat, and pie crusts and all sorts of stuff, cookies. He reused hog fat because that's all we knew. So we'd render these pounds and pounds of fat, and then we would put them in the freezer for the year, and that's what we used for the whole year. And this happened, and Daddy would bring home all the heads because the farmers didn't know what to do with it. And he was German, and what you do is you make what's called heads meat, and you take off, you boil the head. I know this sounds disgusting, but you would boil the head and remove the fat and the meat, and you would grind it up and put seasonings. Also, my dad and mom did their own sausages, and that's all I ever knew was this meat that we took care of ourselves. And then we would go to the neighbors who had a large chicken farm, and we would buy a bunch of chickens, and unfortunately we would kill them in one day and take care of all the meat and process it and put it in the freezer so that this would last a whole year. Also, we did our own canning of vegetables. We did pickles, potatoes, corn, tomatoes. We made our own ketchup. Mom had a recipe. Nothing went to waste on the farm. Every part was used, animal-wise and vegetable-wise. There was, like for example, when a cucumber gets to a certain size, a lot of the farmers' wives would throw them away, and because they were too big to use. Well, to Mom, she made what was called a slicker, and it's you take the large cucumber, slice it up in long slices, and pickle it. And she came up with her own recipe so that everything was used. We never threw anything away. We raised or grew sweet potatoes, white potatoes, red potatoes, corn. We had strawberries, gooseberries. We had ground cherries, all sorts of stuff that we took care of on our own. And it was just part of life. I miss those days.
Well, before I wrap up, I should ask, can you put this into context? Ella, when were these days you're talking about, and where were you located? Where was your farm?
In Illinois. I grew up in Stronghurst, Illinois, and it's a small little farming community. It was, let me see, I was born in 57. I'm not embarrassed. 57. So it was probably in the 1960s. I remember start remembering the farm, growing up, and also we did not go to the laundromat. There was no such thing, and we didn't. We did all of our laundry with a wringer machine, and with tubs of water that you had to carry the water into the house with these tubs, and you had to be very careful not to run your finger. And it was two round tubes, and you would wring it. And then finally Mom got an electric one where it would operated by itself. But the old ones, you had to use a crank. And but Mom eventually got one electric, and everything was done by hand and emptying the water afterward. So